Life is going to be your greatest teacher. You could be in school 100 years and be dumb as a doorknob. The key is creating a blueprint. What do you want to do and how do you want to go about it? Don't let a man or a woman control your narrative in your 20s. It's a recipe for disaster. Listen, if you want to be Nick Cannon with 20 kids at 20 years old, have at it. But life is over. Game over for you. We don't have to pump out kids every other hour to help on the farm and help with yard work. This ain't Little House on the Prairie. This is misconception. You have to work hard in your late years and all this stuff. Work hard in your early years. You don't want to be working hard at 40-something years old and bones cracking everywhere. Every time you walk, your knee pops. Every time you get out of bed, your back gives out. Don't be 45 and talking about you got 3 jobs, unless you want to work 3 jobs. Welcome back to the channel. This is Can I Be Ernest. For those of you who are new to the channel, when I'm not making videos of interest, I'm usually doing social commentary, probably in my car. Why? Because everyone else is. I've been meaning to touch on this topic for quite some time now, and I felt who better than me, a person who's written a book about the ups and downs of my childhood through my 20s, to touch on the title that you see, the things I would have done differently in my 20s. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys 3 things I would have done differently in chronological order, and I'm going to go in depth with each subject matter. So the first thing I would have done differently in my 20s is create a blueprint, a plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. What do you want to do in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you want to just stay at home and ball out? Just have a little money to just hang out and blow it recklessly? Do you want to have a cushion in your bank account? Just to give you guys a little backstory. I have an old friend who knew right after high school that he wasn't going to college. He was like, nah, I ain't going. His idea was to work until he couldn't work anymore. So dude would work 2-3 jobs, and he did it for a few years, and he saved every penny while living at home. I mean, every penny. He always had money to do something, but most of his paycheck went to his bank account. And by the time we were in our early to mid 20s, he had like tens of thousands of dollars saved up. Lie to you not. You've got to plan in your 20s. You've got to utilize all your energy, because when you get 30 and 40, that energy it dwindles. Am I saying it should be all work and no play? Of course not. We got to live a little bit, but you got to be smart with your planning, because you don't want to be 21 living check to check because you have a cell phone bill or a car note that you have no business paying, or multiple credit cards, this, that. You don't want your debt to be higher than your income. You don't want that. You want everything to be kind of like even keel, or your debt to be lower than your income. So planning is imperative. I didn't plan in my 20s. I went to school for a minute, then I went right into the workforce, went right into the 9-to-5s. And at this time, you're making 10, 12 an hour. That was something back in the day, late 90s, early 2000s, as a 19, 20-year-old. That meant something, because a lot of people that age are working retail. They're making $8, $7. They're not making money. So I'm sitting here in office buildings making 11, 12 an hour. After a few months, I'm like, nah, I don't want to do this. I want to work at Foot Locker. I don't want to get up this early in the morning and take the subway with a whole bunch of adults and wear slacks and sweater vests and button up shirts. And I don't want to do that. I want to work at Nike Town. I want to work at Barnes & Noble. I want to work at Tower Records, HMV. For the young people watching, those were our record stores. We didn't stream back in those days. But I wanted to work in the cool places, and the cool places weren't hiring me. Only these 9-to-5s were hiring me. And I didn't understand why, because I was an intern at like 17 in an office building, and I used that actual position on my resume. And when I would apply to jobs back then, they were the ones calling. The retail jobs were not calling. So all I'm doing is working 9-to-5s at 21, and I'm angry and I'm quitting. No plan. No planning at all. And you don't want to take your 20s for granted. If you're not going to go to school, then what's your next goal? Is it to make money, or is it just to have money to spend? You got to figure that out. Personally, you're probably best off working and saving money, because the spending part will come back to bite you in the ass. And that's topic number 2, spending habits. You've got to figure out what's more important to your 20-year-old self. Is it spending, or is it having? It can be both, but you've got to have more than you spend. Does that make sense? You've got to save more than you spend. And that's one thing I didn't do. I'm growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know the fashions from back then. Baggy clothes, Jordan sneakers, throwback jerseys, fitted caps, getting your hair braided every 2-3 weeks to stay in style, big oversized coats, PlayStation games or Xbox games, a bunch of CDs, hanging out with friends, going to the movies, trying to fit some dates in between. Money is going all over the place. Money's going all over the place. I had no type of discipline with my funds. So keep in mind, I'm quitting jobs left and right. And now when I do have a little money, I'm spending it recklessly to fit in. Try not to fit in. If you're in your 20s right now, the game is a little different. You guys are into designer and this and that. We weren't doing that back in the day. Give me a polo shirt like the one I have on, a fitted to match, little bling in both ears. I hate the word bling, by the way. So outdated. But a little jewelry in my ear, maybe a little necklace, some Uptowns or Air Force Ones, whatever you guys call them. And I'm good money. I look like $1 million. Throwback jerseys, $300. I'll buy it. Here you go. Here you go. No planning. No planning. So again, you want to have a plan. You want to have a blueprint on what you want to do as far as, do you want to still be at home? You want to get your own spot? You want to plan. Plan, plan, plan. It is super important. Number 2, you want to have good spending habits. You can't spend recklessly. The key is discipline. You have to save your money for a rainy day. So poor spending habits would also mean getting into credit card debt. Something that I did in my 20s. I didn't know any better. You go to college, some of these credit card lenders are all over the campus, lurking, waiting to get a sucker to sign up for a credit card. I had multiple credit cards in my 20s. Wasn't paying attention, didn't have the proper guidance, didn't know what I was doing. Swiping all through these department stores, Macy's and Dr. J's, Foot Locker and this place and that place, just spending and not understanding what it means to pay a balance. Giving minimum payments to my credit card with a balance, in the high hundreds, low thousands. Not thinking, not being smart. So you don't want to have poor spending habits in your 20s, and I did. These are things that bite you in the ass years later. You just don't think about it at the moment because you're trying to fit in. I can't tell you what it felt like being in my 30s with creditors calling me from stuff I did 10 years ago. And I have to rectify that in order to establish good credit. Little things you got to pay attention to. So it's okay to spend. It's okay to spend. But have a savings plan first. Do you know how many adults don't have a savings? Can't pull out $500, can't pull out $1,000? Think about in your 20s, the sky's the limit at that point. Most of the times you're still living at home. You could take full advantage of that opportunity. Even if your parent charges you rent, they're not going to charge you full rent. So the key is to make sure you don't have that many more expenses. So if you are being charged partial rent, don't have more than a cell phone bill to your name. Don't have a cell phone bill and 2 credit cards and this store card and that where money's just going everywhere. So you're living at home, giving mom rent, paying off 5-6 expenses, and the debt to income is not matching. So that's what I did wrong in my 20s. Having too many credit cards. You don't need that many credit cards. If you're 22 years old, 23 years old, and you want to establish credit, 1 credit card is fine. Just 1. And I'm not some financial guru, financial advisor. I'm just giving you the lessons that I learned. You don't need multiple cards. Just be disciplined with the 1. You can go a long way. So to recap the first 2, you want to plan. You're 20 something years old, got to have a plan. You can't worry about fitting in. Be a standout. You can't worry about fitting in. The era is different now. I don't know how you young folks do as far as the fitting in thing. It's different. It's different than 25 years ago. It's different. I don't know how many young people like hanging out anymore. Everybody's on their phones and whatever. It's a little different climate. But don't worry about fitting in. Set up a blueprint, set up a savings plan, work and work and work. You don't have to work in your 30s and 40s. You can actually start coasting in your 30s and 40s if you jump on it in your 20s. This is misconception. We've got to work. You don't know you don't, but utilize your 20s accordingly. I get it. Everybody wants to have hangout time and fun time and all that. Your 20s should be the discipline years. With the proper guidance, the discipline years. That way, when you get older, you can ball out. Or You can settle down, whatever you choose to do. So design a plan. Have good spending habits. Make sure you save more than you spend. And the third thing that I would have changed, boy, oh boy, the third thing that I would have changed in my 20s, if I could turn back the hands of time, relationships, women. Listen, I look at my analytics and I see that 25 to 34-year-olds seems to be my highest demographic, followed by 35 to 44. And I appreciate you guys. Those of you guys who are seasoned in your 40s like myself, you can attest to this. Women do not matter in your 20s. Relationships don't matter in your 20s. It doesn't. Take it from me. Don't spend too much energy worrying about that. Sure, everybody gets lonely. We get it. We get it. You can read my book front to back. I was somebody who was dying for a relationship. From the time I came out the womb, I wanted a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend in kindergarten. I'm kissing girls in elementary school. More so they were coming at me. But elementary school, I got my first kiss. No one can tell me anything about the importance of wanting a significant other. No one. Because I chased and chased. And when I didn't chase, they were coming after me. But in your 20s, it is imperative. Keyword, imperative. Look it up in your damn Google. That you focus on you. Be selfish. I was not selfish in my 20s. At all. Not selfish enough. Don't get yourself caught up in your 20s with nonsense. It's okay to have a bae. It's okay to have somebody on your arms. You know, it's cool. And from what I hear with this dating market nowadays, I don't even know if jokers are really even looking for relationships anymore. But focus on you. Be as selfish as you can. That doesn't mean don't help others. That doesn't mean don't look out for others. That doesn't mean don't be generous. But don't give yourself to anyone else. Don't. Don't have children in your 20s. I don't care how bad you want to play with little toes or dress your little one up like you or push a stroller. Don't have children in your 20s, male or female. We aren't in olden times where you needed to produce kids at an alarming rate to help on the farm. We ain't on farms. And those of you who live on farms, God bless. But for those who live in regular settings, we don't have to pump out kids every other hour to help on the farm and help with yard work. This ain't Little House on the Prairie. Don't have children in your 20s unless you're sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars and you just got time to burn. You need to selfishly use your 20s. You got 10 years of your 20s or 9 years of being in your 20s. Be about you. If you decide in your latter 20s that you want to get married and you're in love, okay. But I hope from 20 to 28 or 20 to 27, you did step 1 and 2. Don't jump into a marriage and put a baby here and you haven't even lived life. Don't do it. I know there's someone watching out here that's saying to themselves, "Oh, well, I love my kid." You can love your kid. I love my kid. You can love your kid. But when you have a kid in your 20s, you're doing yourself a disservice. And when you're chasing women or men all over the place in your 20s, you're bound to slip up. You're bound to. Unless you're smart, you're smart to the game and you know not to get caught up in the traps and in the webs of relationships, you're bound to slip up. Whether that's a child, whether that's an STD, whether that's whatever. Chasing, and just not prioritizing you, recipe for disaster. Take it from a lot of us. My early 20s was spent doing nonsense. And then next thing you know, boom, 20 years passed just like that. And you're still going through the struggles of something from 20 years ago. You might be financially drained by the time you touch your 40s messing around, wondering why the ends don't meet right now. Oh man, why can't I do this? Or I can't afford this. And you should be able to afford this if you plan wisely in your 20s. And again, I can speak it because I was taking L's left and right in my 20s. Left and right. Not thinking. Listen to your elders. If you have somebody with wisdom around you, listen to them. Don't just blow them off like, I could say blow it. I could say blow it off. Don't just blow them off like that, like they're not important. There's wisdom there. We lived it. We lived it to tell. I know a lot of young people hear, but they don't listen. Goes in one ear and out the other. Life is going to be your greatest teacher. So we get that. Life is always going to be your greatest teacher. You could be in school for 100 years. Life is going to teach you more than school will. So you've got to experience things on your own. But when an old head is talking to you, listen. Just pay attention. We've been through it. And we aren't that old where it sounds like hogwash. Like, what does he know? He's in a wheelchair. He don't know nothing. No, I'm not. I can do everything you can do. I'm just older. So to recap, have a plan. Have a blueprint. As soon as you touch 20, figure it out. Talk to somebody older, family, friend, whatever. Associate with somebody older who can give you some kind of guidance. Don't just take your 20s for granted because they go by like that. Just like that. Like one day you wake up, you're 30 and you're shitting yourself. Design a blueprint. Create good spending habits. Save more than you spend. Ball out, but make sure that account is good. And these days, there's so many options with the banks. Young people are investing. We didn't have Robinhood back in the day. You had to actually get like a Wall Street Journal newspaper and follow stocks. And this wasn't that long ago. Early 2000s, we still didn't have, apps like that. But if you wanted to get into investments, you had to like buy investor magazines and really focus and even hire an investor. Like you had to hire somebody that knew how to pick stocks for you. So you guys got the world in your hands if you're in your 20s. Everything is just given to y'all. All of us, but you guys in particular. So back to the point, have a blueprint, have good spending habits, and don't chase relationships. Don't even worry about it. If you're trying to just get you something because, we're men, go ahead. Be smart, but go ahead. But don't get caught up. Don't be 24 talking about you about to be a dad. Done. Game over, bro. Game over. We got exceptions. Of course, there's those who've managed to overcome the odds. But you got a lifelong struggle right there. At least 18 years of it. And don't let the chick take you for child support. Done. You're done. You're done. You got to be smart. Have fun. Women come and go. Men come and go. You don't need to be 22 and locked down. I'm going to marry her. For what? I'm a wife her. For what? Yeah. What happened to companionship? Nobody wants companionship? Just somebody to hang out with? Focus on you. Be selfish. You got to be selfish. So the 3 things that I listed, I did none of these things. I had no plan. I had poor spending habits. And I pursued women left and right. Relationships left and right. If this didn't work, I'm looking for the next one. If that didn't work, I'm looking for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then you get caught up because you're not paying attention to these people and their personality traits and their moral compass and what they believe. And they, people tell you what they want you to hear, what they want you to know. You don't really know their brain. And you're not asking questions in your 20s. You're not asking questions. You got a pretty thing on your arm. You're not asking questions. So these are the things I would have changed in my 20s if I had to turn back the hands of time. Thankfully, I've been able to overcome some things as time progressed, but it took a long time. Don't get caught up in the web if you're in your 20s. Focus on you. Be selfish. I said it.